Here with Shaw, Sean Shaw.
Sean Shaw.
Sean Shaw. We hear the word Shaw quite a bit around here, as you might imagine. You are a political blogger, are you not?
I am, yes. I've been blogging on Saskatoon city politics since November 2009.
And very engaged in the process. I was looking at your blog over the last few weeks, and you've been to several of the voter meetings and whatnot. Is it that you are a part of that ward, or are you just fascinated by the whole process?
I'm just fascinated by the process of civic politics here in Saskatoon and just want to get that information out to people who may not be watching on TV.
Yeah, and again, you've been blogging for how long?
A year and a half almost now.
Yeah. And what is that compulsion that causes you to follow these things and indeed write about them?
I think it's just a general interest in how the city's run, and I've always get questions from friends who want to know what's going on, and that just sort of filters down to, hey, why instead of telling people 10 times, why don't I write that down? And it gives people something to read, and it gives me something to do while I'm eating breakfast in the morning. So,
right on. Well, here we are, our second by-election in a few short months. I think by-elections are actually more exciting, given that the last civic election was basically returned the same incumbents, whereas that's not actually a choice on the ballot this time. You actually have to choose somebody new. So it seems like an open race.
It certainly is. It's really difficult in a regular election where an incumbent's running for the challengers to win, and I think that's why we don't see many people run. And the civic by-election, 8 candidates. I mean, that's amazing to have in any election.
Yeah, and word going around is that there aren't a lot of fringe candidates, as you say. These people seem all very well informed of the process.
Yeah, I was at the Ward 7 debate last week, and I was thoroughly impressed by all the candidates. They all were very articulate with the positions they were taking, and didn't seem to be a fringe candidate among them.
Now, one of the other great things about, say, the idea that people start from the ground up and literally door knocking to find out the issues. What were some of the issues that were coming out according to the candidates first?
Well, what we heard a lot about at the Ward 7 debate was the pedestrian traffic. Pedestrians being able to get around Ward 7. There's a high seniors population. So that was definitely something the candidates were hearing, wanting to see it easier for pedestrians. Garbage conversions are still going on in Ward 7, and we know how hot topic that's been in the last couple of years, so still going on there. Curbside recycling seems to be getting everyone's attention still. We're still in the middle of that debate in the city, so obviously that was one of the issues. And I think one of the final ones was almost to a person, each of the candidates were fairly critical of the way the current council's been spending tax dollars, and that came out loud and clear from both the participants and the candidates at the debates last week.
And fiscal responsibility is, of course, almost everybody's literature mentioned that one of the first few items.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you just the anger you could see at the debates from some of the residents asking questions about how their tax dollars are being spent, and you can see that the candidates were all hearing that because their answers were along the lines of we need to do better. So.
Now, to gather information for a thing like this, I suppose that people could basically look at the results from Ward 5 and see whose campaign was more effective. But Ward 7, even though it's the same city, might be a different culture.
I think it's a completely different culture. If you look at the last few elections, you go back through the results, and I think a good indication is who people were voting for mayor and who they were voting for councillor. And I think there's a definitely different demographic and a voting trend in Ward 5 compared to Ward 7. Ward 7 has a lot more seniors, while Ward 5 has a lot of families with kids. Not to say those aren't in Ward 7 as well, and I think the politics play out differently in those kind of demographics.
Also, you're seeing a real evolution in Ward 7 as well, what with the bridge coming in, as well as the evolution of Stonebridge. I mean, 10 years ago, Stonebridge wasn't a factor. Now it's a vibrant, vital community full of businesses and residences.
Yeah, and it will be the biggest neighborhood once it's fully built out in that ward, and it will have a big impact. It's a lot of young families in there, and that will definitely change the demographics away from the high seniors populations that we're seeing right now.
Now, you said you mentioned you drove around Ward 7 recently to look at sort of the campaign ideas, and what were you seeing from the candidates?
What I was seeing was you only have about a month for these candidates to get out there and knock on doors. So I wasn't seeing a lot of lawn signs on people's properties, but there was definitely quote-unquote sign war going on the public spaces, candidates trying to get their name out there, and that's the most important thing. If you can't get your name in front of people's faces, they're not going to know who to vote for you when it comes to time to mark off their ballot. So.
Yeah, and again, although, partisanship aside, there's always an undercurrent of which candidates are sort of favorable to which party, but other than that, that, they don't really have that infrastructure to go with. Like they don't have a party flag to stand under. They've sort of just got to decide on their own colors and their own ideas.
Exactly, and I think that's what candidates are spending their time doing, is letting people know what they think. And yeah, you always hear the undercurrents of, oh, you know, the certain political parties behind this candidate or the certain political parties behind that candidate. I personally don't think that's true. I don't think our provincial politics and federal politics are actually filtering down in an organized way into our civic politics. Sure, you'll have people who are members of certain political parties helping out, but you know, at the end of the day, in a civic campaign, it's about getting people and volunteers out to help you, and it doesn't matter what their political background is.
Now, Ward 7 itself, if you were to define it, it's sort of defined by the river, Taylor Street, and Circle Drive, more or less, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, we can see the map on the area right there. So you're looking at, a wide demographic. You can see that there's the Willows and definitely the more expensive houses in Stonebridge, and that goes all the way down to Taylor, which are, say, the more or less expensive houses, and much more, say, the family orientation. So it's really hard to, pick an exact Ward 7 resident, because there are many.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, between Ward 7 and I think Ward 4, those are the two most diverse wards that we have in this city, and it's hard to pin it down. You can go from young starter homes in Stonebridge to Adelaide Churchill, where you have very spread out houses with a lot of seniors in there, and around the Market Mall area, there's a lot of seniors complexes as well. So.
Yeah, and strategically, would it be wiser, do you think, to target the seniors, seeing as they're most likely the ones to get out and vote?
I think so. I think past elections have shown that it's people who are 40 plus and older who are voting. You don't see proportionally people 40 and under don't come out to vote. So it's definitely worth a candidate's while to focus on seniors populations and older people.
Now, generally, in almost all elections, it's a trend to either go as the insider, the one who's very knowledgeable and can get things done, or the outsider, the one who's a brave new voice and is going to shake things up and come in with a fresh perspective. Did you see most candidates sort of picking one of these two sides?
I think actually almost all the candidates were sort of positioning themselves as that outsider. The one candidate that I saw that tried to take that insider track was Robin Bellamy. I mean, he's got 14 years experience on the public school board as a trustee. So that's, you know, when you have that experience, you want to show that. And if that means taking an insider role, then that's what you would do as a candidate. That being said, I don't think he ever played himself as a status quo and going to work really well with the current council. He was critical when he needed to be critical and was, I think, really responding to his residents' concerns. So.
And I guess there's a lot of topics, too, along the way, especially with recycling, that was a very hot topic to mention, a very hot topic to say, yes, I'm concerned, I'm thinking about it, but not a lot of solutions right off the bat.
No, well, and I think that's just a recognition of what the debate's been so far in this city. There's a lot of information floating around, but not a lot of hard facts, and you saw that in a lot of the literature that was going around, and also at the debates last week. The people just weren't sure what the costs were or what this would involve, and you know, a lot of concern with that. When you don't have actual answers, there's going to be it will become a hot topic.
Now, on the topic of literature, the strategies for the candidates seemed fairly normal, except for Mr. Bellamy. He went a somewhat different direction with his. I believe it was a 16-page document
yes.
he went out with.
Yes, I've never, you know, been around politics for as long as I've been, especially in the municipal scene. He had what looked like a fairly expensive and really detailed brochure, colored, glossy. Usually you're seeing things that are off a photocopier or black and white on paper usually. And so there seemed to be a lot of attention and probably a lot of his $10,000 spending limit put into that brochure for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to. It's a very interesting strategy. It's a new strategy, so it's interesting to see if that works out for him.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, difficult to get your word out. I mean, these days we have the internet, and people are, of course, encouraged to go to the candidate's website to receive their message from their source. But I honestly didn't see a lot of website advertising. A lot of the election signs I saw simply stated the name and not the website.
I think that might be incumbent of whereabouts they were campaigning. Again, Ward 7 with the high seniors population, you're probably not going to have them going to your website as much as you would in, say, another ward with a lot of younger people in it.
So tell me that you went to one of the sort of the forums, the debates. What was the attendance like?
I think there was about almost 100 people in attendance, which was large for the ones I've been to and seen. And people seem to be very involved in asking the questions and showing their appreciation for the responses that they're hearing from the candidates.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that we're going to see greater engagement from the voters because, I mean, right now numbers, early numbers with the advanced polls, and we're putting it around 17%, which is it's pretty dismal.
It is. I mean, well, in the Ward 5 by-election, as the returning officer was saying, there's about 16%. In the last civic election in October 2009, 27%, one of the lowest turnouts we've had in decades. And I think that should be a growing concern for the city if we're only getting less than a third of the people out to vote. That says something about our politics and maybe something that we need to change.
Yeah, perhaps the only way to change that would be if we had, say, a really grassroots candidate that was able to mobilize a whole ton of volunteers, because we haven't seen any polarizing candidates at all in this election.
Yeah, I think so, but I mean, it's always the big issues are going to draw out the higher percentage votes, voter turnout. But I think as well, what we're seeing a real lack of right now is just engagement of citizens by our politicians. And I'm not just speaking in this city. This is a trend that's going on across this country and across North America, these low voter turnouts. And people seem to not think that the civic politics are important to their life. They don't think it has an impact. And I think it's the job of both the city and our current politicians to get out and engage those voters a bit more and get them excited about what's going on. And the second factor, I think, is we're seeing a real lack of local coverage from our news media. I mean, Shaw Cable is the only place where you can come to see City Council on a weekly basis, and the only place tonight, I believe, doing live coverage. And I commend Shaw for that, and of course I'm here. But, in the elections, you're very pained to see, even general elections, to see your bigger medias like CTV Global, CBC doing any kind of coverage for local. And I think that's a detriment to turnout as well.
Absolutely. I should mention, if you're watching right now, we are live here on Channel 10, and we're anticipating the results of the election, which will be coming in at any minute, and we will post those for you absolutely as soon as we can. We have a reporter live at City Hall that will endeavor to get an interview with the winner, and hopefully you stay tuned with us. We're currently talking with Sean Shaw, political blogger, and how can people find you on the internet?
My blog, you can go to www.seanshaw.ca, SEANSHAW. It's also, I think if you type in blog.seanshaw.ca, you can also get to it. And I update, probably every other day or so on whatever hot topics I'm seeing in the city.
Excellent. And that's rewarding for you? You're enjoying it?
I do. I've always told myself I'm going to stop doing it as I get more busy on my day-to-day life, but I always seem to be drawn back to it. So it's a good way for me to keep up on what's going on in the city and to filter that in sort of an easy-to-read format for people. So
and it's really a brave new world media-wise. I mean, you have once you get a follower and once you hit the publish button, your audience is just as big as any major newspaper or television station.
Potentially.
Potentially. All right, we're going to take a little short break right now, and when we come back, we'll return live with as much information as we can about the ongoing by-election, the results of which we can expect any second now.